Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peter Igaga. Now, we're here on your favorite show, and that is NTV Men, the one show that lights up your Wednesday night. Can't argue that. Now, as always, we are the one and only show that talks about the things that nobody wants to talk about. Tonight, we're talking about mental health, especially where men are concerned. But we're going to have a bias towards depression, because there are a lot of things that happen around mental health, but we're going to zero in on depression today. Is it a reality, or is it something that's just perceived as people having issues? Now, with us tonight, we've got two guests. Ladies and gentlemen, good to have you here. You guys all right?
You're super.
Yeah. No, she's already wound up. Relax, breathe in, breathe out. This is men. Huh? I'll get you in a second. Stefan, you mentioned that you've had some mental health challenges. So I think this would be a good place. I didn't say when. The fact that you're getting defensive is also a sign. But that aside, now, a lot has changed in society of recent. The challenges that we go through are not what they used to be. Life is harder, in quotes, because for some people they say it's getting easier. But we are under a lot of pressure to deliver. A lot of pressure to deliver at work, a lot of pressure to deliver to kids. There's even some research that says that, especially in Europe, nowadays a lot of advertisers have stopped advertising towards adults because they're advertising towards children, because children are the bosses. So a lot of people now are not in control of their lives, especially adults and men for that matter. My question is, do you think that is a reality? Or do you think it has always been like that? It's only now that we're talking about it.
Mental health is a reality. It's healthy, and it's good that right now men are openly talking about this.
Some men.
No. I think it's we're in a good space. For the longest time, men are conditioned, and men have been brought up to not to show vulnerability. Now we have reached a time when men can actually be vulnerable and express themselves. Sayings like "you are a man," men don't cry. We've been brought up to be beings with no emotion, and I'm glad that we have reached a point where men can sit down and talk about mental health. It's not that the numbers have risen, but like research says that the numbers have risen in recent years. But the reason why it was not, as in people did not speak about this back in the day, because it was not a manly thing. It was not something that affected men. But this is real. Depression is real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris, do you think there's anything wrong with breaking down? As a man, as he's rightfully said, a man is expected to be strong. Some people, I'll not say who, believe that men and women are equal, but then usually, like, if a thug comes into the house, everybody looks at the dude and
and that's why men cannot be the same. Thank you for saying that.
So do you think there's just more pressure on men, or do you think we don't have a system to handle the pressure?
Well, so men breaking down system to handle pressure. I think that whereas we are trained and conditioned not to break down, I think that even the toughest of guys crack sometimes. It's just that most times when a man cracks, it's a thing of, it's got to be a really good reason for them to crack, right?
Not everybody believes that, though.
No, but usually they do. I mean, I could tell you famous figures in history, generals, whatever. So for a man to crack under pressure, that happens. It doesn't mean that you are not that you're not manly, that you're not macho, because I think there's a difference between courage and bravado. Because bravado is, you put up a tough exterior, you want to look like you got the act together, and yet you're cracking on the inside. Courage is that even though I'm under pressure or I have failed, I still move forward within, even with the failure or with the fear. Right? So I think that the calling for men is to be courageous, but not to be pretentious.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that there's a space, and has to be a space where men can get to be able to admit that I'm under lots of pressure and find ways of releasing some of that pressure. Because if we don't, we crack. So you find that the difference between men and women most of the time in terms of how they deal with pressure is that ladies are able to talk to fellow ladies, and they talk and talk
They
and
talk
talk and
about
talk.
everything,
So
yeah.
they get the whole pressure off their chest. And for most men, because of the way we're conditioned, you sort of hold it in, and so you have so much pressure, so you implode. There's an internal explosion. You implode, and you lose your marbles.
However, Chris, who likes a weak leader?
So here's the thing. I'll give you some examples. Nelson Mandela.
What do you mean by Nelson Mandela is weak? What do you mean?
No, I want you to tell me if that's a weak leader. King David in the Bible. Jesus. I will name so many. People who you would really say that's a strong leader. But they cried. And in fact, Jesus wept, like in public. Like, whoa! When Lazarus died. So my point is, I don't think that expression of emotion, especially when you've hit your lowest, I don't think that is a show of weakness.
Yeah.
And in fact, you can show emotion like that in public, and then follow it through with one of the boldest moves a man can ever make. So I personally don't think that men should be emotionless, and I'm not saying men should be whippy and all that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we need to be real. We need to be real. If you are angry, you're angry. If you are deeply pained by something, you're deeply pained by it.
But what is real? What do you mean by, what
being
is
real?
Real is what has been conditioned to us,
What
Real is do not cry. You're a man. That is real to a man.
That's the thing. I'm saying that
that
that's
is real.
unreal.
I'll tell you what. Even though we'll definitely get back to it, but don't you think there was a science behind that, of a man having to be real, if I may put it that way, to be able to be tough on the outside and show leadership?
So I'll tell you real quick. The kings of Buganda, I think to this day, are not allowed to see a dead body. Why? Have you ever found out why? It's because they do not want the guy to experience the fear of seeing death. Because traditionally they were supposed to lead the armies to battle, and kings led from the front. But most of the time, so you'd hear Kabaka Junju nagenda kulutabalo nebakireyo, whatever. They say he slides. Yasererayo, because kings don't die, that they kuserera. So kings would go to Lutabalo and kuserera, because they have they don't have the sense to see that if I push the army this far, we're going to die.
Yeah.
So I don't think that was a good service to a king. I think kings that are able to see death and see, okay, so how did this one die, and then they get to know the science of dying, they would have lived longer.
Yeah.
And I'm a Muganda, by the way, so
You're in a safe space.
I'm just saying that I think that the real world we need to interface with the real world with real and true emotion, with boldness and courage. And I think being courageous means that we do not overlook issues. I mean, what's his name? The guy who wrote Purpose Driven Life, Rick Warren. He had a son who had depression, and who struggled with depression, and the guy took his life.
Yeah.
Right? Sadly. Okay? Now, so you're a global icon, big time pastor, known all over the world, Do you pep that over and say it didn't happen, or try to say that no, that you know, you try to put up a story with it, but the reality was that's what happened to his son,
Peter,
right? So you have to deal with it.
I believe that the reason why depression is affecting men more around this time is because men do not know how to deal with being vulnerable.
Exactly my point.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Ochola, you have experienced depression firsthand.
Yes.
In your words, in your case, what brought you to that point, if I may ask?
There were so many things. It was a combination of so many things. Yes. First, the environment that I was in. Okay, let me just tell you this little short story. So the year was 2016. That's the year I graduated. Like any fresh graduate, obviously, I was very excited. Yeah, I was out there. I wanted to see what options life had to offer. So I started looking for a job, and around that time, I got absorbed into one of the local churches, but I was still looking for a job. Yes, so I got into one of the programs, and okay, things didn't go well. Yeah, things just didn't go well. So there is this one day, I was home, I got a panic attack. Yes, that's the day I started hallucinating. Yes, for some reason I thought someone was after my life. Yes, I thought someone was after my life. So I remember making a few calls, but then the people I spoke to even made things worse. Yes.
How is that?
I got so anxious. Yes, I got so anxious, and I was so nervous. I was really, really, really scared. So that very day, I remember my sister served me lunch, and I suddenly had no appetite to eat food. Yes. So she left for work. She left me with my little niece. And I remember sitting in the sitting room with my little niece. My little niece was actually watching TV. And for some reason, I thought the TV was speaking to me. I know this may really sound very strange and funny to a normal guy, but this is what actually goes on inside a mentally ill person's world. Yeah, so that day I remember my sister came back. I went to open the gate, and I was naked. Yes, I was naked. I remember my sister asking me, "Conrad, what's wrong?" I just couldn't respond. Yeah, there were already voices in my head, yeah, telling me, "Do not respond." So we walked back inside the house, and I remember I blacked out. Yeah. So the next thing I remember, it was actually the following day. I woke up. My other sisters and brothers came home. So I remember I was moving around the compound, and I went to the pit latrines. I wanted to throw myself in the pit latrine. Unfortunately, the pit latrine was actually small. Yeah.
Fortunately.
Fortunately.
Yeah.
Fortunately, yeah. So the pit latrine was actually, so I couldn't throw myself inside the pit latrine.
So you were actually suicidal?
Yes, I was actually, at that time, I thought I was actually already dead. I thought I was like a walking dead person. Like I thought I was a zombie. Yes, so somehow they managed to convince me to enter the car. So the next thing I see, I was taken to Utabika Hospital. Yes, so from there, we saw a psychiatrist. My sisters told him what had actually happened. So that's when I was actually diagnosed with a major depression.
Okay.
Yes, so when that happened, I remember they bought me food. It was actually chips and chicken. And for some reason, I didn't want to eat. I thought the chicken was actually my heart. I thought I was eating my own heart. Yeah? That is really, really, really very, very bizarre, I know. But that is what was going on, because I was already hallucinating.
Yeah.
Yes, so that day, that was my first day in Butabika Hospital. So the following morning, I wake up, and this is the second time.
So you were admitted?
Yes, I was actually
Okay,
admitted.
yeah.
Yes. So I wake up, and this is the second time I was getting naked. So my caretaker comes in, and he tells me, "You know what, you need to put on your clothes." So somehow I managed to listen, so I put on my clothes. So as I move outside, there were so many people. I remember I started collecting grass in the general ward. You know, that day I think that slash. So I was outside. There was a voice in my head, you know, this is what you need to do. You need to collect this grass. So I started collecting grass and putting it in heaps. So my caretaker had moved out, so he came back and he told me, you know what, hey, come this side. So I somehow managed to listen. So for the entire time I was at Butabika, I was there for 2 weeks. For some reason, I thought everything around me was a puzzle, so you had to, you know, solve the puzzle. Yes, yes. So after the 2 weeks, I was discharged, and I was on my road to recovery.
All right, good stuff. Okay, we do have to go into a break. Very touching, I must say. But when we come back, I'd like you to just think about something. What do you think tipped the scale? Because it's just important to know at what point because you're a young man. I mean, you've got your whole life ahead of you. I mean, you graduated from college. You're on the path to greatness. So where did it stop? Food for thought. Now we are here at the Naguru Skies Hotel talking about depression in men. Is it a reality, or is it something that you might think happens to other people? You've heard it from Conrad. It can happen to you. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back from the break. In case you have just joined us, we're here at the Naguru Skies Hotel on your favorite show, That Is Men, talking about men and mental health challenges. And tonight we are specifically talking about depression. Now, Conrad, you've given us your story, a very, very touching story. What do you think was the tipping point? As in, when did you start having a conversation with now the voices that you just mentioned?
First, I must say, I didn't know I was depressed not until I was taken to hospital. Yeah. Yes. For the voices, I actually started hearing them the very first day my sister came back. The very day my sister came back, and I went to open the gate for her, and I was naked. So something at that time was telling, you know what, you need to remove your clothes. Remove your clothes, go out, open the gate.
If you don't mind me asking, why do you listen to it? Can't you just say, no, I'm not going to do what you're saying?
At that time, actually, under normal circumstances, a normal person, you control your thoughts. But now when you're mentally ill or when you're depressed, your thoughts actually control you.
All right. Okay. Thanks a lot. Deep, I must say. Angela, my dear, I have a question for you. Now, before we went on air, you were very strong saying about both men and women are the same. Okay. Chris has talked about women having more avenues.
I guess I said equal, not same. We are different.
Potato. Same.
Okay.
All right. Now, women clearly women generally talk more. Women sing, even like when they're doing chores and that kind of thing. In your opinion, do you think those are things that help? The fact that you have a channel to voice what's going on inside you?
Of course it helps, because I also do group therapy with people who are available. I mainly have women, although some men turn up, but I've realized that men don't want discussing their issues in the open. So for us as women, we talk, but also lately, you have to be wise. Who do you talk to? So sometimes you need to pay someone to listen to you talk, to protect your confidentiality, right? But otherwise, talking has helped us a lot as women to cope. Yeah.
So do you think men should talk more?
Men should talk more, and they should also allow to be vulnerable. Because the challenge is, I've realized, the way men solve their problems, if he's having a challenge, if he's a beer guy, it will be the booze. He'll drink. So if, and these days the young people, because I'm even glad that Conrad is here today, because the mental health theme is actually young people and mental health in the changing world. So young people now have different challenges. Some of their challenges is social media. You want to keep up, the girls, keeping up with the girls. My daughter is in high school, but she'll tell you boys have to make sure he has at least 500,000 on him because he has
high
to.
school?
Yeah. He has to impress the girls, and a young man will
Where are they
just
getting this
call,
money
mommy,
from?
mommy, I need money. I need 250,000. He has a week to close of term, and he'll not give a reason why, right? So there's a lot of pressure. The guys need to impress.
Okay, but you've mentioned something very interesting, social pressure. Okay,
Yeah.
clearly it plays a big role. Can we blame that on parenting? Because at the end of the day, shouldn't I raise my children to not yield to such pressure? Because I mean, I'm wondering, what does a high school kid need 500,000 shillings
They
for?
even take more.
You cannot blame it to parenting.
Partly.
Okay, partly parenting, but you can. What you need to blame this on is societal expectations. Men's conditioning.
Yeah.
You asked him earlier on about the tipping point. A tipping point can be anything. A tipping point can be stress at home. A tipping point can be something a job you've been chasing and you're not getting. I talked about men getting into a sphere that they are not used to. Women have been vulnerable for the longest time, and for the first time, men are talking about vulnerability. So it's something very new. And research has it that if you compare men to women, men are more depressed than women, 70% of the time.
It's true. It's true.
And this is because, we have been raised in societies where there is a lot of expectations from a man. And, we keep a lot inside. And then when it finally, when things don't work out, it bursts and it's something, a different ballgame.
Okay, I'll tell you what. To me, this whole thing is a very serious thing, and I'll tell you why. There's some research I read which say that actually 30% of the generally of people in Uganda actually have mental health challenges. So it means literally 3 in every 10 people you see have issues. But the thing is, the reson why I looked at parenting.
Which study was that?
Now you're asking me very many details. I'll tell you after the show.
This is national TV. We need to know.
I'll my source.
That's almost almost one of us here has mental issues.
It has reached a point where they say that...
and I'll tell you where I was going with this. When it comes to the issue of parenting, when did we stop saying no? We talk about societal pressures. Why can't boys... Because I have a theory, which I tell a lot of young men, if she's going to go, she'll go. Okay. And the sooner she does, the better for you. By, stressing yourself out and spending money that you don't have and getting involved in stuff, it becomes a problem. Just randomly, I know a lot of, one of the hardest things for a man is to be rejected. A lot of women don't know that. Rejection is a big challenge for men.
I think it's also with women.
Women actually handle rejection better.
That's
than
what
men.
you think. I'm a woman, so I'm speaking for the women.
So, but when do we teach our children that the word no is okay? And if you don't have it, you don't have it. You don't need to break your neck. And it's also okay to fail.
So Peter, I think that as we talk about depression and all these things, that we need to speak about coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And what helps most of the world not get depressed, because I think that all conditions, everyone that walks the earth has got equal chance to go through roundabout any condition. And what helps many not to get into that space is and there's many ways people go about this, but I'll speak about what I know. What I know is, apart from just having safe spaces and people that you can talk to, I find that setting aside time for quiet space, time for prayer, reflection and prayer. I'm a believer in Christ. I'm a Christian, and I think that in my personal work life, right, there's been times of high intense pressure, and you can't explain it to anybody. No one is going to understand. Your wife won't. Your workmates won't. No one will. And sometimes just being in a space where you can talk to a higher power and just believe that you have let it off your chest, and it gives you a certain peace of mind. David, in the Bible, he wrote, and he said, "Why are you so cast down, O my soul?" And he says, "Put your hope in God." Because you see, the soulish realm, our will, our intellect, our emotions can be cast down, depressed. It's a reality, right? So it's a whole thing of, do you get to stay there? Because you can hit the floor and stay on the floor, but you can also hit the floor
And get up.
And I think the reality is that you hit the floor and you keep getting up. Right?
Chris, the reality is this.
The
reality is this, that not everyone is like you.
No. Hey, so what I am saying is that there's so many people who are like me and who do what I do. And what I am saying is there are many options. Some people would say, go have 5 beers. Knock it out. When you wake up in the morning, you'll be better. Some people do that. And I've not tried that. I'm telling you what I have tried. Okay, so you'll talk about the beers.
No,
I'll talk
no,
about
I'm
mine.
not, I'm saying this. No, I'm not saying.
But I'm saying
No,
that.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
you live in this religious bubble that everyone
That religious bubble
is
is
a
so
Christian.
real.
No, listen to
I'm not
this.
saying
Listen to
everyone
this.
is a
Not
Christian.
everyone is a Christian.
Absolutely.
Most men, research has it that most men, I'm talking about men, their coping mechanism is a bar. The coping mechanism is the truth.
Okay, I don't know which research
No,
that is.
listen. Listen to this. You sitting here and telling us that do this. How many people are religious?
No. So I know you have a problem with religion.
I don't have a problem with religion. I want you to be real.
No, I'm
By the way,
real.
he's being real.
Yes.
No, he said,
I
he
can
gave us
also
the
tell you
story.
what I
He
did.
gave us a story. He's from church.
Yeah, I can
And
also
God
tell
is in
you.
charge.
Yes, I can also tell you
Yeah.
my story.
Do tell
Right?
us, yeah.
My experience, because I actually also suffered depression. I was diagnosed with bipolar, right? But one of my coping mechanisms was the Bible, gospel music. That's how I coped. Because what he's talking about, when you hear voices, it's true. You actually hear those voices, and they'll give you medication to kind of calm them down. But somehow they don't seem to go away. So
my
what
problem
I
is
did,
this.
listen, so what
Listen and
I
learn
did, yes,
today.
so what
No,
I did,
I'm going to rebuttal
I
this.
decided, let me listen to gospel music, which is telling me good stuff. Because most of our secular music is going to be, it's about swearing. It's about, the woman's body and all those things. And that wasn't feeding my soul. And then I chose to read the Bible. And the Bible worked for me because I kept affirming myself. I actually got a lot of strength from Psalm 139. That I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Because when you hear these voices, they are putting you down. You are suffering. Your ego is suffering. Your self-esteem. But of course, it doesn't start at that point. What makes you tip over? There are different things. Like when he asked him, I think he's not getting to the bottom of what tipped him over. Sometimes it's either relationship problems, something is happening in your relationship, and something happens, right? Or maybe the way I'm relating with my mom and dad, if I'm a young child, maybe an adolescent, and I just break down. Or my parents are not getting on. It can make someone have a breakdown.
No,
Right?
my point is this.
So what he's saying, he is right. He's talking about what has worked for him.
Yeah.
And what I also want to let you know is that there are other men, because Peter had mentioned that, there are also men, although they don't want to talk, they have actually come for these therapies,
Thank
the
you.
group therapy, right? And there's one guy, he has come and he even wrote his story in New Vision. He's a journalist, right? He was suicidal. He would do self-harm and he suffers from OCD. But this guy eventually actually came. I remember first he came for our sessions, but with his parents. And he wouldn't talk. You could see he's heavily sedated. Eventually, he wrote his story. He went public. Then after going public, I invited him over actually this year, and he was able to talk to other people. How do you cope if you're feeling suicidal, right? So that talking is also a mechanism. And also another coping mechanism is your meds. Because the truth is, whether you like it or not, there's a season where you'll need the meds. I had to go through that. I had to be on medication. But of course, there comes a time personally, that is my personal decision I made. I talked to my doctors and I said, I've had enough of the medication. So I'm off meds.
Now, all right, we do need to get into a break, and
let me
then
see
we
what
will
else.
start with you as soon as we come back. And of course, medication is something we'd like to hear from you, Conrad, about. Does it help? Because we've actually had somebody on this show before who said medication doesn't help, was making things worse for him. You say it is a must. Don't answer that. Now, we are here at the Naguru Skies Hotel talking about men and mental health challenges. That doesn't mean that women also don't go through the same thing. But don't forget, this is a show we want to hear from you. Let's engage on Twitter, live tweeting right now, and also on Facebook. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back from the break. We're in the third and final session talking about men and mental health challenges with a bias towards depression. Before you lit the place on fire.
I was going to say this. I don't have a problem with with your coping mechanism, but my problem, which is religion and whatnot. The problem is,
By the way, it's not religion.
it's Christianity. Yeah,
Yeah,
there are also
Christianity.
Muslims also, who cope with the issues with Islam. What I'm trying to say is that because of religious conditioning, most people tend to, and it's something that has happened for so many years. When something happens, they go to God, And I loved what she said. There are other coping mechanisms like talking, and I love what the Ugandan government has done right now. We're in a space where you can go and to your HR and say that you're depressed, and they'll give you leave. Talking. The whole thing of most people, when something is wrong, there's nothing wrong with going to God, but there are other coping mechanisms. You can talk about this. That's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you very much. So, guess what? Before you jumped up on grab this one.
Because I feel like everyone.
I actually said that talking is one of the things you do. And just in case you want to know, prayer is talking to God. It's still
Talking.
Amen.
okay. It works. It's just that I'm talking to someone
No,
superior than you. Okay.
Bigger than him.
Yeah.
True.
So because I'll tell you what, the reason why I love the Bible is that it's not a book that covers up truth. It's a real book. If someone raped someone, they would say so. If they lied, if they murdered, it's truthful. And so you get to see the lives of people who really struggle with different emotions. Elijah, for example, was a prophet, big time, who did so many miracles, and then he was threatened. He got like a WhatsApp message from the first lady of the day and said, by this time tomorrow, you're dead meat. He goes running and he's so fearful, and he goes to God, I'm so scared, I'm the only one remaining. So the thing is that you get to see real men who do mighty things, but actually go through all these depressions and all these funny feelings. And so when you read about those guys, and they say, a guy speaks to himself and he says, why are you so cast down, oh my soul? In other words, your emotion and stuff can really be low. And you need to speak to yourself and say, why am I in this place?
Okay,
Right.
but Chris, Conrad mentioned something very interesting. You say that the church did not help you.
That's not what he said.
You're putting words in his
No,
mouth.
technically.
Don't
No,
threaten the guy.
it's not.
It's not what he said.
That's not what he said.
All right, what was your story then with church?
I was in church, yeah.
Yeah.
I was there for a couple of months, but then things just didn't go well, and that's a story I wouldn't want to go into.
Okay, so question I was asking was, did the church, regardless of which church it was you were going to, did it not give you what you wanted, or was it did it help you get out, or did it push you in the depression?
Okay. I really didn't want to talk about
No, you know, yeah, we just
I-
we talk about, yeah, because we share experiences, and that's how
Yeah.
we grow, you know, and we,
You don't have to mention that.
yeah, don't mention the name of the
so-
church.
Okay.
Yeah.
Church was actually one of the, okay, I believe it was one of the reasons that I got into a depression, because there's so many things that happen, yeah. When you're in church, you know, there's principles, there's values that you're supposed to adopt, there's things that you're supposed to practice, and blah 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 blah. So for me, my story didn't end well. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I just didn't cope up with those things.
Okay,
And by the way, let me just say this, Peter, just to put everyone at rest. I think it's Wilson Bugembe who, in one of his songs, called church a hospital. So if you want to have a collection of sick people,
go to church.
you go to church, because there's all these people who are coming in who need God. Okay, and Jesus said it. He said, "It's the sinners, it's the sick who need a doctor. It's the sinners who need a savior." So if you want to find messed up people,
Go to church.
they're in church, because they need God. Okay, so I am no stranger to finding that there is dysfunction in church, and sometimes disappointment from leaders who set a bar this high, and their
do the
actions are
complete
that
opposite,
low,
yeah.
or stuff like that. Sometimes very legalistic teaching that tells you, live up there, and it's impossible to live that kind of life. And even Jesus was against that kind of thing. So what I'm saying is that I connect with just finding that some things don't connect in some church spaces.
Yeah.
And it's a real thing. And one day I think we should talk about it.
All right, we'll get to that. Just 1 second about medication. Do you think medication helped you?
Yes, medication helped me, and medication is actually still helping me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I reached a point where I used to sleep for 1 hour. Yeah, I was restless. Yeah, I would try to sleep, but then my brain was still at work. I just couldn't sleep, so I would sleep for 1 hour and I was up. So I was actually given medication for sleep.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
so medication has actually helped me, because I'm actually living proof that you can actually recover through medication. And everyone has their own coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So something might work for you, something might work for him, and yeah.
Let me say something. I moderated an event, I think last month, in regards to sexuality, and we had policymakers who kept insisting on praying and whatnot, and the students kept saying one thing. There's one girl who stood up and said that instead of insisting on us praying and trusting in God, why can't you provide policies where a young girl can enter a pharmacy and get contraceptives without being judged? That is what I'm trying to say. As a society, because of religious conditioning, and there's nothing wrong with that, we tend to go to God first, which is good. There's nothing wrong, because I feel like you want to shoot me. But listen,
No?
what I'm trying to say is this.
Yourself.
Peter, this is what I'm trying to say. Get medication. Go to therapies where people can share some of these things. We need to talk about depression being real. We're in a space where men should be allowed to be vulnerable. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not always about praying. If it doesn't work, do something else.
Okay, I tell you, I think if praying works for you, it's very, very fine, because we are all not the same. Now, however, we've reached that point when we do have to actually wrap up the show. I know time runs. Your parting shot. What do you have to
Okay.
tell the viewers as we wrap up in 1 minute?
I think as we wrap up, it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay not to be okay. But what's important is to get the necessary help. Whether it's to get your meds, whether it's fellowship that works for you at church, whether it is getting a counselor, just go and get help. Speak out.
Is there any specific place you can recommend?
One of the places, because it's a heart-to-heart chat, it's called My Story. We are located at Relate Counseling. People can come for counseling. They can come for peer counseling, because I'm trained actually as a peer counselor. And other places, there is it's called,
places,
yeah,
spaces.
they can go there as well, especially people who want rehab, if they've been alcoholic or any other substance abuse, you know. And then, of course, people don't like Butabika, but it also helps. And then there's also Nakasero Hospital. There's a psychiatric department. They will also help them. Those are some of the places I can mention of help.
All right, great stuff. Conrad, your parting shot.
I would just like to say mental illness is real. Mental illness doesn't segregate, and mental illness can happen to anyone. So take care of your mental health.
Great stuff. Chris, your parting shot.
I just want to first of all say that if you or anyone you know, a relative or someone, a friend, is going through depression or struggling with something with their mental health, please don't be ashamed of them. Please don't stigmatize them. Identify with them and help them through the journey, because they need you. They need you not to be treating them different from when they didn't have that issue. And I think that that's really important. But I really would want to recommend that you try prayer, that you try God, that you try reading the Word, that you try just having a personal meditation and communication with God. It's helped people for thousands of years. It's helped Angela right here, as she said on this show. God works.
Stefan, your parting shot.
My parting shot is very simple. Depression is real. Tipping points can be anything. Can be with your woman at home, can be your man at home, can be your workspace. You need to be able, as men, because we're talking about men, to be able to talk about, and I love this, being vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. Men need to start talking. Vulnerability does not mean that you're weak. Depression is real. Men need to talk more. That's my parting shot.
Great stuff. So you've heard it from the men.
And the woman.
Okay. Mine is very simple. Depression is real. If you are going through anything, talk about it. Don't die with your problems, because that's exactly what will happen to you. You will die. Talk to somebody, get help. Butabika, by the way, is one of the best institutions in the region. You can't compare it with what's in Kenya or in Tanzania. We actually have one of the best institutions. So seek help. Don't be afraid to do that. You don't even necessarily have to talk to people who are close to you. If they won't take what's going on seriously, just get out there on your own and seek help. And with those few words, all we can say is have a good night, God bless, and we will see you next week. Take care of your mental health.